Okay, welcome to this week's episode of KUDEN Radio. Dashiell Miller here from Warrior Concepts, but then you already know that. Anyway, so here's a question, right? What's your battle plan for success? I figured I'd throw in some warrior speak instead of just coming at things from a general perspective. Maybe that'll tune in some ears and wake some folks up. But either way, right? So in the Ninja's Mikkyo mind science study, right, that side of things, there's this core principle, right? We typically know it and call it the Sanmitsu, right? Which is typically known as the three secrets of success, that kind of thing, right? But it also can be translated as three mysteries. I think it's called mysteries because most people don't know how to use it very well. But these are three core pieces that we have to have, or we risk things not working out to the degree that we would like them to. Okay. Now, if you follow along regularly, if you're on the email list, you probably received some messages about some other training we're going to be doing along the way. But either way, right? What we're going to be focusing on during this episode is the power of speech, the power of the word, right? Written, spoken, that kind of thing, and how this is an integral part of achieving more of what we want, but not just what we want more quickly, more easily, less wear and tear on us in the process, that kind of thing. Okay. So anyway, we'll dive into this as soon as we get back. So stay tuned. The big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world. Okay, so you know what? Before we kick this off a whole lot, because this topic's going to tie in this Thursday, right? So for those of you who are listening audio only or whatever, or you're picking up on this after, right now it's April 1st of 2024, which makes it April Fool's Day, but we'll talk about that at some other point. But if you're listening in definitely after April 4th of 2024, then this announcement won't make any difference, right? It's not going to matter. Okay, but either way, right? I've got a bunch of people that have been asking about more information and more lessons and whatnot on the Mikkyo mind science side of things, right? That side of the ninjutsu equation. And let me be very, very clear, right? Just like in just about anything, right? Spiritual related, religion related, or whatever. And again, I don't like playing the religion game. Excuse me. But there's this idea of orthodox, right? This is the standard general way it's done, quote unquote, officially, right? But the way I was introduced to this stuff, and I'll explain this stuff on Thursday, but it's also known as Ninpo Mikkyo, right? So it definitely has a slant to it, okay? So folks want to do this, and so I'm going to be doing an introductory web-based seminar on Thursday, April 4th of 2024. So again, if you're listening after that, you missed it, okay? And what I'm going to be covering is this core concept, right? Typically known as the three mysteries. I know a lot of you have heard it as the three secrets, whatever. We're going to be diving into why, right? It's called mysteries and just this whole idea. But we're going to be focusing on this in a how-to way. So there'll be some historical background and premise as to why this and how this works, right? So for a lot of the folks who are interested in this side of training, they'll know a little bit better as to whether they want to proceed further. Okay. But we're also going to be doing an initiation into a very, very foundational practice that puts all this stuff into use, right? So if it's something you're interested in, great, right? You can get yourself registered. I've got 20 spots, and when I signed on to this, 6 or 7 of them were already taken. So, but if you go to onlineninjaacademy.com/3mysteries, all one string, no dash or anything like that, there's still space, right? Anyway, all right, so let me look at my notes here. Okay, so where do I start with this? This is what I'm calling brick number 2, right? Brick in the wall, right? Last episode, episode 202, this is 203, we started a series of give or take 12 to 15 episodes where I'm going to be going through things and specifically covering topics, core topics that students need, right, to get their head wrapped around, to get the levels of success that they would like to have. Now, if your idea of success is good enough, then you can just skip these, right? We'll see in 16 weeks, right? Hopefully you'll get some more out of this. And the reason I say that is because this idea of good enough tends to pervade modern society, right? And for lots of different reasons, but just generally, right? And we've talked about this in other episodes, and we'll probably mention it again, right? This idea that comfort, right, is the poison of success. As long as somebody's comfortable, as long as whatever you're doing isn't going to kill you today, right? That's why people smoke their entire lives. Get it? Anyway, it's why they do that, because, even though there's enough nicotine in one cigarette to kill you, most of it's destroyed at the burning point. So there are no immediate consequences. Okay? So as long as it's not going to happen today, okay. But the opposite is also true. I don't need to work on it today because I can always do it tomorrow. Except tomorrow's not guaranteed. So here we are, right? Anyway, right? So during this episode, I'm going to be covering, I'm going to be discussing the 3 mysteries from the perspective of one of them, right? We're going to be looking at it from, first we're going to focus almost entirely on martial arts, ninjutsu, that kind of thing, from this goal attainment kind of perspective, because that's why most of you are here. But what we're going to be doing is and covering and the kind of the exercises and the perspectives and whatnot that I'm going to be giving you will work for any goal, right? The attainment of any goal. So whether that goal is a solid relationship with somebody that you would really rather not lose, right? It's not somebody's better than nobody at all, which is kind of a crappy kind of reason to be in a relationship, right? I don't want to be alone. Okay? Well, let me tell you, there's a huge difference between being alone and being lonely. So let's make sure that we're clear about what it is that we're trying to avoid. Okay? But regardless whether it's a solid relationship, whether it's having well-developed kids, right? Success-oriented kids and whatnot, having a great career, list goes on, right? I mean, it's going to be personal to you, but again, just for ease and brevity's sake, you know how long these episodes last. So we're going to stick to the goal, a goal within the martial arts or ninjutsu realm. When I say a goal, I'm going to be covering several perspectives, because everybody that's listening is at a different place, okay, in their journey with regards to martial arts or self-defense or ninjutsu, whatever you want to call it, right? You're at a different place from other folks. There might be a couple of folks, there's probably bigger pockets, right? But there's probably a couple in each of these areas that I'll be mentioning, and more, right? But not only are we going to kind of limit things there, but we're just going to focus on one of the three quote unquote secrets, right? And that is word, right? The use of speech or word, right? And again, that can be spoken, it can be written, doesn't matter, okay? And we're actually going to come at it, right? I mentioned it in the title. We're going to be coming at this from the perspective of planning, okay? So, yeah, sorry, there's work involved, okay? And hopefully, right? You, the person I'm talking to, right? Because while I'm doing this in a live format and we've got a bunch of folks that are on live, uh, talking to you individually, right? If using the word or thinking about having to do, right? There's the activity or the deed part, right? Or just merely thinking about what needs to be done causes a knot in the gut, a lump in the throat, causes a kind of weird, visceral, tactile kind of feeling, then this is going to be a harder uphill or upstream climb or swim than it is for someone who is passionate about getting it no matter what. But it's also going to be harder than someone who is going, just typically has a tendency to embrace the suck. Okay. They know they don't have to like it. There's going to be lots of things that have to be done that they're not going to like. But again, they're going to do it because it has to be done. And having the results, having achieved the goal, owning or having or living or doing that thing is more important than staying where we are or in backsliding, right? The thought of, well, from a martial arts self-defense, whatever, right, perspective, the thought of needing the skills and not having them when we need them, right? For some people, it just makes them want to throw up, right? Just it's that poisonous or undesirable or whatever. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story here. Sharing this with James earlier. My daughter, a lot of you know that she is an intern at the moment. Hopefully, it'll be long term. But she works for NCIS. Okay, not the TV show. Okay, but the actual agency. Right. So Naval Criminal Investigation Service. Right. And so she was home for Easter, and her mom and I are not together. So she spent the majority of the time with her mom, and then on her way back through today, we had lunch, okay, which was great. And she's really, really excited about this project that she proposed to her senior supervisor and the abbreviation is DAD. What is it? It's an assistant director, right? So anyway, really excited. But we're having this conversation, and while she was excited, I didn't think that she was loud. But apparently, there was someone in the booth behind me that when he and his wife and daughter got up to leave, he made it a point to stop and look at my daughter and say, you know, not everyone's interested in what you have going on in your life. You were a bit loud. And she said, oh my God, I'm sorry. I apologize. And he went on to let her know that perhaps in the future she could be more mindful, and then called her sweetheart, which caused Dad's ears to perk up and me to make eye contact. Well, he was trying to make eye contact with her. She apologized again. And then he walked away and then turned around again to continue speaking. How many apologies do you need? Okay. She said she wasn't aware. But the sweetheart thing kind of tipped things. And the fact that he got multiple apologies and he's still talking. His wife and daughter had already walked away. And then he made the mistake of making eye contact with me. And I don't break eye contact. Okay. I'm not the guy to look like I'm going to stare you down, and I'm not staring you down. But you will know that I'm talking to you. And he looked at me, and then he paused. I don't know if he was trying to think about what to say or not, but I simply said, all you had to do was say something. Well, I mean, it would have been rude for me to say something. I mean, what do I say? Look at you and say, shut the hell up? Well, yeah, that would have done it. That would have been rude. There are many different ways to say it. We're having a conversation. You're a little loud. I apologize, but could you just tone it down? We would have apologized and gone on about our business. But I simply said, again, which is one of those keys, and this is one of those things we're going to be focusing on Thursday from this specific quote-unquote power ring, right? Chi Nogin, this earth power ring of strength and stability. I just repeated the same sentence. All you had to do was say something. I didn't break eye contact, right? And of course he said, we're all good. You have a great day. Yeah, I'll do my best. Okay, but there's a certain rhythm to the voice. There's a certain, anyway. There's a certain aspect to warriorship, right? That doesn't feel the need to turn something into a battle, but at the same time, there's a line, right? It's the same thing with success. Okay? If we don't know what we're doing, if we're not confident in our abilities, this in and of itself, on the fighting side, can cause us to do more than needs to be done, or it can cause a greater problem than already exists. Okay? On the success side, not knowing or not having confidence in one's abilities, or holding on to BS. Okay, BS can be what most people think right now. I mean by BS, but it's a flawed belief system, right? That's where everything kind of goes amiss, and we end up with feelings of resentment or feelings of frustration, right? Or we don't get it. We're running around, we're doing all this work and nothing is happening. Or the other kind of BS, where we've convinced ourselves that we're doing a lot of work, but we're really not, and that's the reason why nothing is happening. Either way, right? So again, there is a lot to this, and I'm going to try to cram as much of that into Thursday as possible. But what I want to cover for this one is this idea of having a plan, right? Writing down, right? And there's a bunch of different ways to do this, right? We can use word combined with thought is a bad translation, right? Everybody hears thought, word, and deed. But thought is a bad translation because if we're thinking in terms of left brain, I'm thinking in words, that's still word. That's internal dialogue. Doesn't matter if I'm speaking to somebody out in the world. If I'm speaking out loud but talking to myself, or I'm not speaking out loud but still talking to myself, it's still the use of word. It's the speech, right? One of the things we need to be mindful of is, what do we keep saying to ourselves? Huh? What do we keep blowing off? What do we keep justifying? What do we keep? Was I irritated today? Absolutely, but that part wasn't word, right? It was the way that was conveyed to somebody to draw a line in the sand. Okay? This is simple, right? The thought part, again, a lot of this stuff is just badly translated into English, but it's also badly translated by people who read a general statement about something, believe they know what it is, don't pursue it more deeply, and then blow smoke up their own ass, I guess, right? So, but when we say thought or we say mind, right, what we're really talking about is intent, right? So again, covered that in a different one. As a matter of fact, one of the bricks coming up in a few weeks will be on intent, right? So we'll end up going through a bunch of this stuff. Anyway, it just won't be the same way that I do in a official Mikyo specific kind of training, right? It'll be the the nice version. Okay. Sorry, I had to keep my voice wet there for those of you on audio only and think that we keep dropping out on you. Anyway, all right. So one way to use word, right, or the power of word, right, whether we're spoken or written, in this case is written. And what we're doing is, we visualize a goal, right? We have an ideal, right? If like I could wave a magic wand and have anything I want in this particular area, okay? No void for vagueness bullshit. No good enough bullshit, right? If I could wave a magic wand and have the perfect relationship, if I could have, perfect kids, I could have the perfect career, I could have whatever, right? I could have my 58,000th degree black belt in Ninjagram Puba Jutsu, whatever, okay? Then like I envision this thing and then I write it down. I write it out and describe it, okay, in as great a detail as possible. Now, I don't need 15 pages or whatever. You should be able to do it in a page, page and a half, okay? Because what we're looking at doing is describing the look, the feel, sounds, right? If a goal is to, own a cabin in the woods that I can get away to or live there, whatever, then can I hear the birds chirping? Can I hear the wind rustling the leaves? If people or somebody's there with me in whatever context, whatever goal I have, right? What kind of things would they be saying to me? What kind of things would I be saying, right? There's visceral feel, those kind of things, right? These become something known as key strategic indicators, right? How do I know I'm accomplishing things? Where am I in regards to these different aspects of the goal? Okay, and we'll dive into this much more deeply here in a few minutes. But another way to use the power of word, which is what I want to focus on during this episode, we'll call it what it is during this training, right, is in developing a plan of action. Okay, so here's a question, right? Can you imagine a warrior general going into battle without a plan, or with a poorly constructed plan, with a plan that doesn't take into account geography, right? The lay of the land, the enemy or the opponent, right? The forces, numbers, armament, tactics, those kind of things, right? Probably not going to go well, or it's probably going to be a really long, drawn out battle, bloody, lots of loss, right? Going to be exhausted if they do achieve the goal. Okay, kind of like what happened to Odin Naga's son, Oda Nobukatsu, right? He was of, what is he, the third or fourth of 3 or 4 sons. Oda Nobunaga always treated him like shit. And as a way to show dad,
that he could be a good leader and whatnot, right? He led the first attack on Iga way back in the day, and came in through 3 narrow passes, split his forces into 3 different columns and whatnot. Not a bad idea, except those passes are more like bottlenecks, and got his ass handed to him. He barely got out alive. Okay. Of course, that turned into a huge embarrassment for Dad, because the Iga region, the only reason why Odin Naga was considering attacking Iga was because it was in the way of the next biggest region on the other side of this mountain range, and he was trying to be the shogun of all Japan, right? If he would have succeeded, Tokugawa Ieyasu, who was one of his generals, would have never taken over, and there may have been 100 years of enforced peace, but probably wouldn't have looked the same based on, well, you can do your own research on Oda Nobunaga. He's just an ass. His family didn't even like him. So it was a poorly conceived plan. Okay? It was just hastily thrown together because he had one goal. The goal wasn't to take the region. That's what he told himself. What was the goal? What was the goal, James? Oh, James is in the background. Maybe you can't hear me. Anyway, the goal was to show up dead. Okay, so we need to be very clear about what the goal is. Okay, and then we need to have a plan. We also need to understand that plan is probably going to need to be adjusted as we move along, because the first assumption you need to make with any action or moving into anything that's new is that you're going to be wrong about a lot. Right? There's either a lot you don't know about it, or there's a lot that you think you know, but it's an error. Right? There's probably a lot that you don't want to know about it. Right? Like how difficult it's really going to be, or how expensive it's really going to be, or how, and that's just not just in money. That's in expenditure of energy. That's all kind of resources, all kinds of things. Right? How much your friends and or family or loved ones are going to threaten to, if not, help now abandon you because, right, you're not spending enough time with them, or you are reminding them that they gave up on their dreams and you're actually succeeding. Again, a lot of these things can be stopgaps, but either way, let's stick with the goal. Okay. So, or the plan. Okay. So the reason why I titled this, "What's Your Battle Plan for Success?" What I probably should have titled it, but I didn't, because I had to choose between a couple of words. Right? It should have been titled, "What's Your Plan for Progress?" And what's your, how will you know that you're progressing? Okay. What's your step-by-step plan to get from the ground up to the roof, right, on a ladder? What does each rung represent? But the reason I chose success is because for most people, success sounds like this accomplishment, endpoint, that kind of thing. And progress tends to sound less important. It sounds less powerful. It sounds like I'm still moving, I'm still working, I'm still, and I don't mean I'm still like not moving. I'm still going, of course. Okay? The closer you get to the horizon and the goal that you're working on becomes a foregone conclusion. If your focus is on improvement and greater understanding or whatever, what's going to happen as you move along is you're going to recognize things that you never knew you didn't know. You're going to recognize problems that need to be overcome. You're going to recognize, just like I did, right? I set out with certain self-defense goals because of my experience with certain types of danger. Okay? It's called anchoring bias. Okay. I was attacked certain ways. I experienced violence in certain ways. And that was my premise for starting off, right? The premise was I want to be able to handle those things where they're not a problem. And then the more I studied, the more I progressed. And this isn't just about collecting techniques, because that's focusing on all the cool ways I can move my body. But if we're focused on self-protection or survival, then we recognize that the techniques are examples of answers or solutions to very specific problems. But the question is, what's the damn problem? Okay. So you kind of pick that up because maybe your teacher shows you, okay, this type of fighter comes at you this way. Oh shit. I didn't even know people fought like that. Well, there you go. Okay. But based on, and a lot of these things collided, right? Based on career, law enforcement, security, those kind of things, I encountered violence and danger that starting out I didn't know existed. Shit. Right? Or levels of violence and aggression and manipulation and deceit and all kinds of different types of attacks that I wasn't ready to handle at that point. Not that I didn't want to, but skill set and development and things like that, right? There was a disconnect between shit, that kind of violence exists in the world, and here's my skill level, so I'm able to handle these types of problems. Here's the skill sets I'm working on, so I can handle this other type or this next level of danger. But shit, I've got to move the goalpost because this other stuff is scary as shit. So I guess I'm going to be working on this longer than I originally thought. Okay, it doesn't mean I'm not making progress, but either way, right? I chose the word success over the word progress just because of the I'm going to use the word allure that one word has over the other one, right? But here's the thing that we all need to get, all of us. Okay, and I don't mean just as a cliche. I don't mean as, well, since I know that. Yeah, okay. Well, if you're not acting in accordance with it, right, then you don't know it well enough to motivate yourself to do shit. And that is that if you're going to make progress, if you're going to make ready, steady, ongoing progress toward your goal, and you're going to stand the best chance possible for attaining your goal. I talked about this a little bit last episode. Then you need to have these elements in place. You need to have a plan. Okay, that plan is going to change. That plan is going to be adapted. That plan will serve you for now. It's cool. Okay, but you have to have a plan. And that plan should allow for measuring, right? Measurement. Because otherwise, you're just making it up. You're just flying by the seat of your pants. You're just winging it, right? Well, I know where I am. Really? Right? So that's why, like my personal students, they get things. There's systems in place like how to turn subjective goals or subjective things into something that you can objectively measure, because subjective stuff can't be measured, right? They can be gauged against other things, right? You know, but in my dojo, right, or in a seminar, I'm the senior most skilled practitioner. I'm the master instructor. It's my dojo, right? Everybody's beneath me, right? But when I go to Japan, that position changes skill-wise relative to other ones that are there. Oh yeah. Okay. A piece of dust on a gnat's ass. Okay. But again, we're going to feel subjectively based on where we are on a given day, right? And that feeling thing, right? if we're having a bad day and we feel like crap because of something else going on in our life, we could look at our e203 training and look at the progress like, well, I suck at that too, when there's no evidence to that. We're just borrowing a feeling that an unrelated situation created, and we're going to bring it over here. Okay, by creating a plan, we create an objective roadmap with key points of reference, just like if we were following any other map. Okay, how many more miles do we have to go? That's very objective, right? How long will it take us to get there? See, now that's subjective. Okay, it's related to the objective, but there's a whole bunch of other things involved. Speed, how many rest stops, how long at each rest stop, whatever, fatigue, all kinds of things. Okay, getting pulled over, how many times, right? Okay, but the distance is the distance. Based on the path that we're taking, there's a distance. Okay, so I can look at my odometer, see where I am now, and I'm 557 miles away. I simply add 557 to that odometer, and unless I change routes, which will change distance, okay, then everything changes, okay? Or everything stays the same. I can count it out and know where my odometer will hit within a mile or three based on how measurement devices work, right? Then I know what I'm going to be pulling in, okay? But if I'm going based on time, how long is it going to take? Right? That's where frustration lies, okay? Because there could be a car crash on the route that we're taking, shuts down the highway, or a bunch of protesters, just like happened in the DC, Maryland area in the last couple of days, right? And had this major, what is it, a 4-lane, 5-lane, something like that. It was 695, I think, right? Had it shut down for like 4 hours. Interesting, right? 58 plus people got arrested, all that kind of stuff. But I'm surprised they didn't get creamed, because that took some balls to walk out in the middle of that kind of interstate, if anybody's ever been on that route. Anyway, so but this is something that allows for us to know where we are at any given point. And if we know how to strategically look at that plan, right? Just like I know that there will be certain so many toll gates that I'm going to go through based on the path that I'm taking. There will be, whether or not there's road construction or whatever, but I'm going to be going through this town and then that town and then whatever. There's mile markers. There's all these things, right? Okay. Our plan ideally should be able to be measured that way. Where am I relative to things? And if it has multiple aspects to it, then where am I relative to that? Okay. Because in all honesty, and I'm sure you are in certain areas of your life as well, I'm tired of fucking hearing people say, as an answer to my question, right? How's this technique? How's this skill? Where are you over here? What I'm fucking pissed off, what I'm tired of hearing is, well, I'm working on it. One, I freaking hope so. Two, that tells me nothing about where you are. Tells me zero. And you know what? Tells you zero too. Okay? And based on eye movement and facial micro expressions, if we're face to face, I know whether they're blowing smoke up both of our asses. Okay? Because it's a cop-out statement. Right? There's either a need to make something happen. James, was it last episode or episode 200 where the topic of are you interested or are you committed come up? Which one was that? It was just a recent one, wasn't it? Didn't I ask a question? Are you interested in this or are you committed to making it happen no matter what? Okay. There's a look and a feel and a presence about someone who is committed to make something happen no matter what. What pisses them off, what makes them angry, frustrated, and those kind of things, very different from somebody who's interested in making it happen, but okay? James can relate. And you know what? We'll have to, I don't know if this is going to be within the 12 or 15 or not. We'll have to see, but I'll throw it out now. Right? The more uber successful somebody is, the more often they say no to requests that are not in alignment with what needs to be done. Okay. And that goes all the way around. Okay. That doesn't mean you don't balance out your life, right? There's lots of times where I want to say no, but I don't, because one of my goals is to make sure that I have a strong relationship with my wife and that she gets my time and knows that I love her and I'm here for her, kind of thing. So, and I'm going to enjoy the time we spend together, but there's other things that I need to be doing. But there's other things, and she knows where they are. I mean, we're coming up on our 16th wedding anniversary. That's the 24th of this month. Where she tells me she's doing this thing, it's with family or friends or whatever, and she says, "What's your schedule like? Do you want to do it?" And she's perfectly okay if I say no. I have too much to do. I have to get this done. Okay? I understand. I'll see if my best friend Tess wants to go. Whatever. Okay? And she'll come home and tell me about her evening and all, and it'll be fine, right? I do the same thing with her. It's how she got from when I first met her. She had her associate's degree, had just started her bachelor's degree, and in the years that we've been together, she's attained her doctorate and 2 additional master's degrees. And who knows, she'll probably sign up for another freaking college program too. But she's uber successful as well. So, but there's no resentment when the other one, no, I've got to get this done, or I'd rather not. I want to focus over here. Not a problem. Okay. But we both know, and we both, it's not a no all the time. But the point is that most uber successful people, most people that are absolutely in control of their lives, right, say no to way more than they say yes to. Right? So anyway, before I jump into the actual how to develop a plan, because that's where the focus is tonight, right? And it's going to start from a general and throw out some specifics, but ultimately, you know what your goal is. You're going to have to map this out for yourself. Now, if this is something that's really, really important, or there's enough people interested in, if folks would like a training, like I'm doing on Thursday, it's a 3-hour training on something very, very, very specific, and it will allow me to vet certain students, and it will allow those students to know better whether or not they want to follow this down the rabbit hole, so to speak. Okay. If folks are interested in training that has to do with like sitting down and actually creating a roadmap, right? Creating a plan, then put things in the comments, send in emails, whatever. But I'm not just going to throw things out as programs. I've done that in the past. They do okay. Some are now bonuses in with other things that will be helpful for students to be more successful. But I'm betting that 80% of the people that get those things as bonuses don't work them, because that's not what they signed up for. They signed up for the way cool techniques. Mindset. How long will that take? That kind of thinking, right? But before we jump into this, James, who do we have on, and any questions or comments up to this point? Hey, look, it's you. You know it's you too.
Just the usual highs. Romans on
Like
Trinity,
people are high, or
possibly.
they're possibly. Well,
Um,
anyway.
Romans on Trinity said hi. Lee said hi.
Awesome. Jimmy's on. Jimmy's not on.
He hasn't given me a
He
comment.
hasn't done his
Lee did.
traditional, his obligatory hi kind of thing. All right, cool. Anyway, all right. So no questions, no comments, nothing, just other than the hi kind of things. All right. Okay. So so let's do this. All right. So here's the thing. Having a goal or having a plan that can be summed up in one sentence. My goal is to have my black belt in ninjutsu. My goal is to have my 10th degree black belt. My goal is to know, and I've heard this before, know just enough self-defense to be able to handle myself should something occur, right? And I want you all to know that that statement in and of itself tells me that someone is uber lazy, right? They don't want to work any harder than they have to, but what they would really like to get from me, they would really like for me to be a fortune teller, right? To know what that attack is going to look like in their future so that I can just teach them how to handle that. Okay? It's kind of like when I do rape defense seminars and women show up, and out of maybe 50 women that show up, 10 are willing to get on the floor and actually try stuff. Everyone else thinks that they can sit there, observe, and memorize things, and they'll know what to do when somebody or if somebody jumps them. Yeah. Okay. Right. And we all know this, right? Because we all know somebody who binge watches martial arts videos online, and if they get up off their ass and go through the movements of, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, half a dozen of them once or twice, I'll be impressed. Okay, but that's not the same as training. Okay? Well, I'm studying. I'm watching the moves. And okay, well, you can watch all you want. What you're doing is you're looking at something two-dimensionally, but you can't feel the pressure of the attack. You can't feel the proximity of another human body. You can't relate to the balance and movement and inertia and things like that are going on, even if you were to practice each role solo. I don't mean Han Solo. I mean by yourself. Okay. There's too much, right? But that also begets the point that, I can't train because I don't have a training partner. Well, I hear what you're saying, but I've had lots of conversations, and I'm hoping this isn't you, right? I know some of the people, James named the names and stuff like that, so it's not them. I mean, for God's sake, my daughter glued pencils together to make something Hanbo length. It's pencils, but it's ninja-like because if anybody ever calls her on it, she already has the plan that she can easily snap them down to base pencils again, right? But when nobody's looking, she works her Hanbo stuff with this makeshift thing that just looks odd at work, but it doesn't look like a weapon. Picking on my daughter. Anyway, but I know for a lot of folks, it makes them feel good that they're at least doing something, but they don't have a plan to gauge things by, right? So before we talk about building a plan, we at least have to talk about what the goal is, or what the initial goal, right? And I don't mean the big pie in the sky goal, right? This big ginormous thing, right? Because that's way too far away, right? And that's, for a lot of folks, that's what causes them to put it off longer, okay? There's even a statistic online, because a lot of you are in my online training programs, okay? But across all online training, so we could be talking about business, marketing, how to use Microsoft Word, whatever, right? there is a greater likelihood of success. And I don't know the exact numbers at the moment, but there's a greater likelihood of success, as well as a greater likelihood of people to enroll in, and a greater likelihood of people to stay with a short-term program that is a certain number of classes, a certain number of weeks, or whatever, than there is, and I mean by a long shot, like 90% of people that enroll in online programs or any kind of schooling or whatever, right, need to know how long this is going to take. Okay? There's a very small percentage, and again, it's somewhere around 10%, that will sign up for something that doesn't have a predetermined end. They want to know how long they need to invest. They want to know, right, how long is it going to take? Okay? And that's why I tend to lean in those directions, right? Even with introductory programs at the school, right? I don't do more than like 6 weeks, which gives somebody 12 to 18 classes, depending on whether they're getting 2 a week or 3 a week, right? People are willing to try things out for that long, okay? And more people sign up for those things than they do for, well, it'll take you 2.5 to 3 years to get your first degree black belt from you, with consistent training, testing on a regular basis, that kind of thing, right? That's, wow, 2.5 to 3 years. Wow, are you kidding me? Okay. Or signing up like I did, right? Take this as far as I can and mean it, right? Not like at every difficulty or turn. And I don't mean, life can throw some pretty bad curveballs. So this is not a knocking anybody that doesn't stick with it or whatever, because my military service, Lee and a couple of other folks know what this is like, right? Can really derail you for a while, okay? But there's drive, right? So, but again, I never expect students to be like me, because I'm not in the average percentile, okay? Which I think is a huge problem that a lot of instructors have, where they expect their students to have the same kind of dedication, loyalty, long-term commitment and whatnot that they do, okay? What I have found, though, is that by doing a 6-week introductory program, those people tend to stay longer. Would you agree, James? They tend to stay with the program longer than somebody who does like a free class or a 3-class intro. Okay? So all 3 are intros. All 3 give somebody a taste of it that might make them enroll. But see, the 6-week program wires their brain for habitual things, and that's enough time for it to become something I do, right? It becomes a habit pattern, as opposed to 3 trial classes, whatever. But if I offer 3 trial classes, see, that sounds more appealing, because 6 weeks, and okay, it depends on how I describe it, right? So when I discuss things with potential students, I discuss the plan for them, but they're going to tell me what their goal is. Okay, so here's the plan. Here's what each program gives you, and I don't mean this number of classes and this thing and that thing, right? Here's what it will do for you. Here's what you'll be able to do at the end of this 6 weeks. Here's what, that kind of thing, right? And it's going to play into what they're looking for, unless they've already told me that they're looking for something that I don't offer, in which case I tell them I don't offer that. Here's the number of a Taekwondo school. Here's the number of a Kung Fu class, whatever. Okay? Which usually causes people to pause, because why would you do that? Why don't you tell them, yeah, but. Because we're developing a long-term relationship. I'm not selling them a used clunker. Okay? Or renting them a mold. Well, I guess renting a home is a long-term commitment as well. But I'm not selling them, something. It's a one-off kind of thing. This is not, no. It's not the way that works. Okay? So the plans that we have at the school, we call them systems, but They all have indicators and whatnot. So, but here's the thing, right? So if we look at our martial arts for self-defense, ninjutsu, whatever it is for you, okay? Before we can talk about the plan, and before we can talk about the goal, we have to talk about where you are right now. Because some people have been training for a long time, but they feel lost, or they feel stuck, or they feel like, what's a good term here, James? They feel like same shit, different day, right? They don't know what to do next, kind of thing, right? Because they've done so much across a broad spectrum, they don't even know where to start with measuring proficiency or whatever, right? Not a bad thing. It's just where they are, right? Which is why I have things like the we call it a done for you blueprint kind of thing. But really, what it is it's the 5 module workbooks, student workbooks, leading from white belt to black belt. And then what's the bonus right now? Is it the Shodan to Nidan packet? It doesn't go Nidan to Sandan. It just goes Shodan to Nidan, right? That's included. Okay. So yeah. So even if somebody never trains with me, they at least have some kind of format that's based on a building block kind of thing, right? So, and it's not just here's the next most difficult technique or whatever, because each of the modules, one forms a foundation, and each one after that builds on it by adding principles and concepts. But each module covers a certain type of attacker type as well. And then it also assumes that you are proficient with the skills below it. So it really is based on a building block kind of thing, not based on a, well, let's see, at this belt level will require X, Y, and Z. And at this belt level will require PDQ. And it just sounds like it's arbitrarily put together, right? And I'm not saying that anybody on this does it that way or has had it done that way, but I've been in programs and been to schools and whatnot and looked at curriculum and whatnot where that's right. It wasn't a reverse engineering of, let's see, by Shodan, for somebody to be proficient with a Fudoken, how many punches should they have thrown to have worked out the bugs, to have an accurate, energy conservation based, but powerful straight punch? Okay. At least 100. Okay. And that's conservative, but at least 100. Okay. Not when I feel like it. Okay. So, but that's why we have like a program like that, right? Again, not about the programs. So, but some people are at that point. Some people already have like their black belts at a certain level. Okay. And they want the next step. So they might do a program with me or something like that, and then realize, holy shit, I'm missing pieces. Or they're going to have to look at and gauge, how did I get here, right? Was this a subjective rank? Was it based on objective skill proficiency? Was it given to me because I have a good heart? It's been done a lot. Whatever, okay? So, and other people are just getting started. And other people are still in the, God, I really want to do that stage. So we can't just map out a what to do until we know where somebody is. Okay. And while some of these could be similar, okay. So, and then there's another group. There's another group that comes to me a lot. And that group it consists of people that trained, attained rank, really engaged years ago. And now they're trying to get back into things. But they're how many years older? How, where, what, whatever. Okay. So again, where somebody is. Okay. So what I'm going to do, just for brevity's sake, is I'm just going to discuss the person who wants to, has always wanted to, maybe is even trying the do-it-yourself route, because YouTube has a gazillion videos, right? I can learn them in whatever order, right? It's going to give me some kind of skills. But I believe that set, that group or that subset, will also have a lot in common with the folks that want to get back into things. Okay, because for a lot of that group where they did train and all that, and then they want to get back into things, they have a lot of the similar impediments that I don't know what to call them, the Iwanas. I don't know, right? The folks that want to do it, they have the same kind of impediments, right? Family, job, time, whatever. Okay, that's getting in the way. That the other ones, whether they're intermediate, advanced, in the black belt levels, in the intermediate levels, or whatever, they've already handled a lot of those things. Hence why they're training. Okay, so. But some of these things will still cross over to the other ones. I'm just not going to spend my time or your time, right, during this and making these things longer than they normally are, planning out one for each one, right? It's just, we have to recognize where we are, okay? So here's my premise for this training. Here's my premise for this episode. That we stop focusing on the ultimate goal, the big goal. I want to master ninjutsu. I want to be a 10th degree black belt. I want to be a daishihan. I want to be a first degree black belt or whatever. Okay. If that's not 6 months to 2 years out, if it's farther than that, it's too vague, right? Because I think it was last episode, we took a look at different types of goals. Was that last one? We covered last time. Intentions, motivations, and goals, right? And how some of those things are left brain, some of those things are very conscious level, external driven, objective kind of things, and other ones are, so this needs to be manageable. It also needs to be believable, right? I think I mentioned that during last episode as well. That it needs to be measurable. It needs to be believable, right? You need to believe that you can do it, right? And it's something that it's a part of the bigger thing, right? So if I want to be, right, I want to be a ninjutsu student. I want to get back to being an active training ninjutsu student, because anybody can call themselves anything, right? We live in the 21st century. People really can't call themselves anything, right? And way too many people who don't like conflict, just not, okay? And I'm not okay with people being whatever they want. You can do whatever you want, right? But if you want laws passed that make me buy into it, then we already have a problem. So, and if that means that you're going to unfriend me and go away, or want to have a long discourse so that I can come around to your way of thinking, I've already done lots of thinking on this. So just take the easy way. There's buttons you can click, right? And then it's a done deal. Okay. So anyway, so what are some of the things that we need? Okay? Because if we set the becoming a student, right, or at least getting, who knows, right? I want to become a student, or I want to get my first real belt in the art, okay? Which means in some schools, they give you your white belt when you get your uniform. Okay? I don't do that. I make students earn their white belt, and they do it in the first within the first 3 classes. If they can do it by class 2, great. If they can do it by class 3, some takes 4 or 5, okay? Because it's a way to vet the student and acknowledges, okay, you've learned this minimum piece right here, and you've come to class consistently, which tells me you're going to be a good student. Because if you can't do it in 3 to 5 classes, then we should probably have a different conversation about whether or not I'm the right teacher for you and this is the right dojo for you. Okay? So, but what do we need? Okay, well, there's certain things that we need. I think it's in the foundations course, James, where I did a mini training. I did it with my inner circle guys. I just recorded a bunch of these things and it became a training. How to set up a training area, even if you don't have the space to train, right? There's certain things that need to be in place for you to be successful, okay? Willpower and wanting to do something is nowhere close to being enough, okay? It's not, okay? Ask anybody who's ever set a New Year's resolution and then 2 days to 2 weeks later weren't doing anything in that direction, okay? So what do we need, right? Well, I need a teacher, okay? For some folks, right, well, you need a teacher and you need a dojo that you're a part of, okay? My online guys that are solo, they live, I mean, Lee's in Georgia, Carl's in Perth, Australia, or near there. That's the closest reference I have for Carl, right? I've got somebody in Macau. I've got, who do I have? They're all over the place, right? I've got some folks much more close to me, whatever, right? And I apologize if I missed anybody. I just have too many. But they're a part of the warrior concepts of Mori no Tora Dojo. Just because they're a satellite student doesn't make them not a part of the dojo. But in what order did they do things? Some people, most people, statistically proven, most people choose a martial arts dojo if they're doing it regionally, if they're doing it live in the academy. They choose one that is within 12 and a half minutes from either work or home. Interesting, huh? Right? Mine was 9 hours one way. And that's after I moved back into the country. So, anyway, now I got to drive 4 hours to an airport, fly 13 hours, and then spend an hour on a bullet train or an express, an hour on a metro, and an hour on a local just to get to the guest house that I'm going to be staying at, right? I guess I could divert and take one more train to get to the dojo. But I haven't been able to work out the timing. These damn airlines just do not work with me when it comes to getting to the dojo on time. I guess everybody that I know that can do that tends to live in California, and it's what, a 5-hour flight, something like that, right? So it just works out better. Anyway, right? So so what ends up happening is they choose the academy and they end up with the instructor. My solo long distance people tend to do it backwards from that. They've chosen the instructor, and by default, they end up becoming members of the collective dojo family. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, but either way, okay. So we can do it either way, right? I want to study in this particular system, and then that'll cut down on the number of academy options that I have in any given region, right? And then that academy that I choose based on convenience is going to have an instructor that I'm going to convince myself is perfect for me, because that's how anchoring bias works, right? Or I'm going to know what art I want to study, and time and distance is only minimally important, right? Or I'm going to decide that there's an instructor that, and that's how I did it, right? I knew I wanted to do this art, but it's always been my mindset that I was going to work with the best person that I could afford, get to, connect with, that kind of thing. So it started out with Stephen Hayes, who was the only person in the States doing it then. And then, of course, everything grew out of that, right? And then it became, 3 specific Japanese master teachers. Well, Shidoshi Malmstrom was after that. And then 3 very specific Japanese master instructors, and then Hatsumi Sensei. So, and those were formal connections, not I go to somebody's class a lot, so I just say that they're my teacher. Right? But you can do it in any one of those ways. But I need a teacher. And when I say I need a dojo, what I really need is a curriculum that I can follow, regardless of whether I can make it to the dojo, or I'm sick, or I've tweaked my shoulder and I'm supposed to rest. I can't drive, but there's always something I can do so I can train or practice when I'm not in the dojo, that kind of thing, right? So I need a teacher. I need a curriculum, right? The benefit of having a dojo association is you now have a sangha, right? Also known as a support group, okay, of like-minded people that understand what you're going through, understand the hardships, are working on the same kind of things, right? You borrow that energy when you're around somebody like that, okay? And there's people above you and there's people below you, okay? So there's people pulling you up. There's people that depend on you for help, right? So there's a very family type dynamic to that. Hopefully, I mean, if you live in if you're in a beneficial family environment, right? For me, it was the family environment that I never had. Anyway, so you need teacher, you need you'll end up with a dojo connection if you go that way. You need a curriculum, right? You need something to follow to base what you're doing on that is progress oriented and not just collectivism oriented, right? You're not just collecting things, okay? You need a place to train outside of the dojo, okay? For my solo students, the place that they train outside the dojo is their own personal space because they're going to be training there more often than anything else, okay? And you need a plan for getting with the teacher, a plan for getting the lessons. And when I say getting the lessons, that also includes getting feedback and evaluated for the lessons. And a lot of people believe that you can't do that long distance. I have more than a couple of handfuls of people that would argue with you that not only is it doable, and some of us, that's all we were the entire time. Okay, so you need to have those things, right? So what I just laid out was rungs on a ladder just to get to the first belt level past white belt, or just to even be able to say, I'm filing training in ninjutsu, or I'm filing training again in ninjutsu. Okay, are there other things? Maybe. Like, do you need a gi? No, but having one and wearing it when you train affects your mindset. Okay, having a mindset or having a why as to why you're doing it, right? That will get you through challenging times. Okay, but see, those things I see as next step goals because they're not important for starting now. Okay. Some people may need to have discussions with partners, spouses, whatever, that they're going to be doing this thing and it's important to them and they're going to be carving out time. Hopefully they're not terrified of their significant other where they can't have that conversation. Okay. In which case that was a bad decision made long before we're talking about this one, right? So, but anyway, so here we have what I name off, James, maybe 4 things, 4 important things just to get back into it or to formally begin doing it, right? Because when I need a teacher, what I'm actually looking for is someone who will take responsibility for my training, for conveying the lessons to me properly, right? For passing on the lineage correctly, okay? Because you can find anybody who's just going to learn you something, okay? Which is why that mindset is what is behind most people who just figure they can do it for themselves and they're just going to go fishing in the YouTube pond, okay? But these become major things, okay? So to train, see, and here's in the life purpose discovery process. It's a program that we have, which is generally a who's the person behind all of these decisions and whatnot, right? There's an exercise in there. Actually, there's several that lead up to this one, but exercise 3 out of 5 exercises that you do. Number 3 is really a game changer because it seems counterintuitive, right? Because here's a spoiler alert. When you're given the exercise to do, it seems very straightforward, but at the end, what you find out is that you just need to look at things differently, okay? Because what you do is you write out these ideals that you came up with in exercises 1 and 2. Got 3, 4, no more than maybe 5 or 6 of these things, right? You got these ideals, right? If I could wave a magic wand and have the perfect life, these things would absolutely be a part of it, right? So you write these things out, and well, they wouldn't be things that you want if they already existed. So there's that, right? So they get written out. And then next to them, what you do is you write out what you believe to be the thing that's inhibiting you from having that thing or that experience or that life or whatever, okay? So once you list all those things out, what you now have is a game plan. Because if you're right about the inhibitors, right, you haven't applied conventional BS, right? You're not bullshitting yourself, right? You've been honest about it, and right, and when I say that, right, we're not skipping over me, like if I have a procrastination problem, then that's a huge reason why a lot of shit's not getting done. Okay, so, but given that the stuff I write out is correct, then my game plan is to systematically eliminate the inhibitors. I don't mean I need to like assassinate anybody or whatever, but I do need to either bring them under control, avoid them, or cut them loose, or whatever it is. If it's a bad habit, I need to work on that, whatever. Okay. So if I systematically eliminate the inhibitor for each of the perfect element of my perfect life, then the more of these I eliminate, the more of that perfect condition or that thing that I want should manifest, because that should happen by default, right? What most people try to do is spin their wheels in producing something without getting rid of the inhibitors, okay? So we're going to have to look at those, okay? But either way, here's the game plan, right? If I eliminate these, now if I eliminate them and I still don't have this thing, it didn't happen by default, then I was wrong about the inhibitors, or I missed 1 or 2 really significant ones that have to go. They have to be managed, okay? Because this thing, right? If I'm doing the work, if I'm doing what I should be doing to produce that, I'm working the game plan and it's not happening, then it's not the doing that's the problem. It's inhibitors that are counterbalancing all the work and preventing me from having this thing, okay? So given that I'm working on it, okay, because, if an inhibitor is me, right? Well, what about me? My daughter and I talked about that over lunch today, right? What specifically, right? We were talking about some people when they talk about things. I think we were talking about communication, right? Her being a really good communicator. There was a subject or something that came up in school where they, the professor, however it worked out, said, write out what makes a good communicator. And the group that she was in just wrote out Trinity. when I think about a good communicator, I think about Trinity. Well, that's not qualities. What are the qualities that Trinity possesses and or leads with that leads you to believe that she's a good communicator? Right? So we need to work on these things. Okay. So I'm just starting at kind of a mid-level. So I need a teacher. Great. What's my plan for getting a teacher to say, yes, I will accept you as a student? Here are my requirements. Okay. Now, later on, you'll have to have a plan for what you're going to do to keep that teacher. Because unless you find a teacher that needs you as a student to justify their ego, then the teacher is going to have certain requirements. Okay? Or they're going to cut you loose. Okay. I haven't cut very many students loose. Right? The ones I tend to cut loose are, I would suggest that people maybe reconsider their martial arts training, but I don't fire them. But there have been about a handful of people over the last 40 years that I have asked to not come back to the dojo because they were a harm to the dojo family. They were disrespectful, not just to me, but to, in certain instances, to the Grand Master, to the lineage, the whole thing, right? Why the hell are you doing this? Okay. So, but what's my plan? What's my plan to attain a plan, right? A curriculum, lesson plan, practice. What's the list of techniques I need to work on at this stage? What's the next list of techniques I need to work on the next stage? How do they build on each other? Kind of thing, right? How, because, you know, most beginner students, again, they choose the dojo because of convenience. They get the teacher by default, and they get the curriculum by default. Why do I say by default? They chose the dojo based on convenience. So they get what they get, right? Okay. But either way, right? So what's my plan? If I get the teacher, I should get the curriculum. That's not an issue. Okay. What's my plan for practice? What's my plan for setting up, even temporarily, right? And a big part of that bonus program or training that we have in the Foundations of Ninja Self-Defense program is about, like, since I have no room, right? This is where I live. Okay. Right. So what you need is a symbol or two that constantly is in your face, reminding you of what you're doing. Okay. And you need furniture that's not bolted to the floor. As long as you have that, you can move shit. You can train, and then you can put it back. If that's too much work, then perhaps martial arts, not even ninjutsu, is beyond your means. And I'm using the word your, third person. Don't take it the wrong way. Whatever. Okay. We figure it out. Okay. What else did I have on there? You need to have a plan for not just where you're going to train, but when you're going to train. Right. So am I negotiating with family members that every Saturday, 3 evenings a week, whatever, or based on my work schedule, their work schedule, school schedule, whatever, I'm just going to work it into those things? Or I already know that it's non-negotiable. They're not going to like it. So I'm just going to wait until everybody goes to sleep at night, and then I'm going to practice. Whatever it is. Okay. What's the plan? Okay. And then each one of those will have an indicator, or will have a key strategic indicator, right? It could be simple. The teacher said yes. Or I don't have an indicator yet because I approached one teacher, 4 teachers, whatever, and I have them prioritize the ones I would like to train with. Right. I'd really like to train with this one, but this one's good too. This one, it's okay. I mean, they're way better than me, so that's good, right? But I have them prioritized, And then I won't really know until, like, if a teacher says, well, if we're going to do this, here's what I'm going to require. Okay, now I've got this other thing, because if some of those requirements are things I need to show to even begin, well, then I've got something else added to the game plan. If they're after, then I can move that to the how do I keep this teacher? Okay, so but either way, I think that one, people's game plans, battle plans, whatever, are more often than not vague. More often than that, vague to the point of they really can't describe it. If I were to put them on the spot and say, tell me what your goal is, don't name a Don number, right? What's your outcome? They would lock up. Okay. See, if it was written down, they could pull out a notebook and go, and then just start reading. Okay. Great. Where are you in that progress? Okay. My students can pull out a freaking training workbook, right? Where are you well, I've seen all these techniques. How do you know? Well, you got these little check boxes next to each skill and technique, right? And so I've seen this one once in class. I've seen this one all 3 times minimum. These I haven't seen at all, right? These I'm not sure if I've seen, so I'm going to need to see them again, right? So which techniques, right? That it's all laid out, okay? Which ones, right? Just like when somebody's going through the modules and they're in phase 3 of any given module, then they need to do an assessment, right? What techniques am I pretty sure that I've got? Which techniques have I seen but I know need some work? And I'm going to go back through that workbook and go, shit, I either never solved these or I don't remember seeing them. So between now and the test out of that module into the next one, we need to get this fixed. But I also, just like in that exercise 3 in the life purpose discovery process, right? The things I'm pretty good at, I don't need to practice very much, right? That'll save me some time. Okay. I don't need to stroke my ego by practicing the stuff that I'm already good at. That's not practice. What is that? Well, I'm honing my skills. You got shit that you can't do. You got shit that you don't like so much, you don't even try to do it, right? Like my students that go into mod 3 and they screwed around with rolling from mod 1 through mod 2, even after being told over and over again. You need to get really good at the rolling, because when we hit mod 3, we're working on throws. And your rolling is your primary ukemi, it's your primary escape from throws. Yeah. And then what happens? What happens, James? They get good at rolling pretty quickly. And some even make it through that where they do just enough to be able to handle those throws. And then they hit mod 4 and mod 5 so that every test, the black belts who are judging those tests take turns grabbing them in locks, holds, or throws and tossing them. And they have to do the right ukemi. Now we do it slowly at first and then we pick up the speed, but they need to be able to pass that part of the test for Shodan. So most of those people get really good at their ukemi in mods 4 and 5, right? But most people put in a good effort in mods 1 and 2, so they're ready, right? As far as average goes. Every once in a while, we get somebody who is a gymnast or who just is agile and likes that kind of thing. Thinking Drew, Shidoshi, Golem, those folks, right? But either way, right? So we do that. We make a plan for if we're starting or restarting. Here are the things I need. What's my plan for getting that? I have key strategic indicators that are super simple. The teacher said yes. I now have a teacher-student relationship with a teacher. Check.
Seems to be some kind of technical glitch going on here that he locked up. Working on coming back on.
I'm on now. Hello? Hello?
There
Can you hear
are.
me? Excellent. All right. Were you covering that blank time, I hope? We had some kind of a glitch here locally with the internet, and I switched over to a mobile hotspot, so I'm not sure how well this is going to hold up, but we're going to keep going. So can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. All right. So where did I drop that off? My key strategic indicators are easy, right? If I have a curriculum, check, right? If I have a place to train, I've mapped it out. I know how I'm going to do it, check, right? If I have a schedule, right? So it's not like I'm going to earn my 10th degree black belt and I just got started. The number of key strategic indicators are just, right? I mean, and or they're going to be vague. Well, I need to do my first belt, and then I didn't do my next belt, and I need to do my. What do you have to do in the inter? It's just easier to focus in that direction, because if I do the things that need to be done, and I eliminate the things that are going to inhibit, but what are they? Okay. Well, every army sets out to win a war, but they have to do it one battle at a time. They have to take one area, one position, or whatever at a time, right? Strategically, they will move in a certain direction. I know I have to do these things. I have to do this long term. I have to, like, the only thing long term that new people and re-engaging people have to focus on, new people, is, right, once I become a student, okay, I'll ask students this, right? What's my goal? Okay, like in one of the introductory programs, okay, what's your goal? And they'll go, to earn my black belt. No, your goal is to qualify to become a regular full-time student in this dojo. Okay, I'm not just going to keep you because you pay me tuition, because the wrong student is an infection to the dojo, and the dojo energy, the spirit of the dojo, is a collective amalgamation of the people that are a part of that dojo, right? Which is something I have to keep in my mind when I'm promoting the dojo, whether it's through social media posts or ads, whatever. I have to be very clear about how I describe things, because I'm looking, if it's kids programs, I'm looking for very specific types of parents. They have to want certain things for their kids, because if they're signing their kid up to martial arts as a replacement for t-ball, guess what they're going to ask me when t-ball season rolls around? Or they're just going to say he's taking time off because he's playing t-ball. Can he come back when he's done? He can come back, but, right? And in all honesty, when most people take time off, they don't come back. There's a lot of adults that know that, right? Whatever it is, mindset, life, other shit they've put in the way, right? Now they're leading a life of quiet desperation, whatever the hell it is, right? All they would have to do is get up and start freaking moving around and training, and they're back in training, right? Well, they actually have to do it 12 to 21 days in a row to reestablish the habit. But somehow it seems to be too much, because other habit patterns have been built since they took time off, quote unquote. I'm making air quotes for the audio only guys. Okay? Since they took time off, and now those things have to be managed. They have to be dealt with. Right? It's not easy to just get restarted. Okay? For a lot of folks, right, it stays a dream, or they thought about it today, but they didn't make the phone call, or they didn't stop into the school, and then life gets in the way, and then they remember, right? Oh shit, I was going to do that, and it's 3.5, 6 months, whatever later. Okay, we have a question on our prospect eligibility form, our student application, basically, right? How long have you been thinking about taking martial arts? And the number one, the it's not even the average answer, it's the common answer, is at least 1 year. So this is for those who are running a training group or a school. If you're not doing things to remind them that they wanted to do this, how long are you going to wait for that person who's really interested in taking martial arts? Well, I don't want to be that pushy car salesman. I'm not a pushy car salesman, but I understand how life works, and I understand how the average mind works. Right? In Mikyo, the symbol for the average mind is a tree full of chattering monkeys. Whatever thoughts are screaming the most, that's what gets the attention, regardless of what you intended to do. Attention trumps intention. Energy flows where attention goes. If you intend to do something, you have to maintain attention, focus, concentration on that thing. And you have to say no to 90% of the shit in your life. Until that becomes so entrenched that you can't not do it. And that's the problem. People aren't mindful of their habit patterns and what's getting in the way, and they're not trying to eliminate things. They're trying to make things happen regardless of the non-productive habit patterns. Or they've got all kinds of red flags popping up about things that should be dealt with, but they're hoping for the best. Me too. I hope for the best for you as well. Okay. All right. So again, this wasn't very big, right? But again, if you're in intermediate stages and maybe the focus isn't on getting a teacher because you have one, or getting a dojo because you have one, or having a place to practice because you have one, right? Maybe it's on learning certain techniques to where it's a handful of techniques that are giving me problems, and the focus is getting them to a point where I get them right 8 out of 10 times, right? Before I try working variations, before I try learning something else or whatever, okay? 8 out of 10 times, not thinking. I can do it by feel, whatever. Whatever the litmus test is, whatever the goal is, okay? What is the key strategic indicator? I just laid out one, but it could be, I get it right most of the time, but I want to be able to do this correctly at 80% full speed. Well, at that speed, you're not going to be able to think about it step by step. You're going to have to be able to do it by feel. Okay. So that's a whole different goal. Okay? It might be belt, but what are the skills that are necessary, techniques that are necessary, knowledge or whatever that I have to have, right? So how am I going to prep for that belt over time so that I know that stuff hands down when I test for my belt, and I'm not pulling university student bullshit, and I'm not cramming before the test, so my brain will do a brain dump and then I won't remember the shit after the test. But I got my belt, and that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. Okay. So again, you know, all of this stuff is contingent on what there is an ultimate goal, but until we get a handle on this stuff, the battle plan may be to, you know, well, but see, that's not a battle plan, right? The intention is to win the war. Otherwise, we wouldn't have freaking gotten into it. We'd have rolled over and gave them the keys to the kingdom and said, yeah, we're not going to fight. Or we've got all the, kind of like in the world wars, right? And Switzerland and stuff like that. We've got all the banks and we're holding all your shit. So we're neutral, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay. If you attack us, if you destroy the banks, you've destroyed all your shit. So, okay. See, that's how power can say I'm neutral. Because in most battles, you can't say I'm neutral and they go, yeah, no problem. Here's how that's going to work. We're either putting you in chains or we're just going to blow the shit out of you. Okay. And for those of you whose mind goes in that direction, I don't mean in the nice way. So, but again, we go back to what's your plan for success? What's your plan for progress? And I know last episode we focused on intentions, motivations, and goals, and how they're all different and how they relate and how they are standalone. In this one thing, right? So it is a goal. Keep your if you hopefully you were with us last episode. If not, right, look up episode 202. Right? But be really clear on intentions, motivations, and goals. But right, the bigger you think, and again, what was the warning or the cautionary tale of things last week, right? If you're focused on goals, your mind tends to be future paced, future focused, and you're missing the shit you need to do today. Because my goal is to have that someday, a year from now, and I've been saying that for 5 years or whatever, right? So that causes your mind to almost exclusively focus on the future, because that makes you feel warm and fuzzy, because no matter what you do, you can write it off as I'm working on it. But there's this wing and a prayer kind of thing. Intentions cause you to focus on what you're doing today. And if the plan is right, if I do these things, then I'll get there by default, right? But motivations are the why, and those are the things that keep you on track when shit gets rough and rocky. Because anybody's willing to do stuff when it feels good. Doing things when all the conditions are right, that's easy. Okay? Doing it when it's not. Doing it when you don't even want to freaking show up for yourself. Okay? And you know what? In the past, I've called that discipline, and we'll probably talk about and use the term discipline. But discipline's another one of those vague things, because discipline to a lot of people is like, I don't know, you've got this regimented, organized personality, and you can just do it no matter what. Yeah, no. Sometimes you need to be your own slave master. And I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about these words, but you know what I mean when I say it. Okay? I don't want to do it. Okay, with that face looking back in the mirror, you need to look at that face and say, I don't give a shit. Get to work. Okay? Or crack the whip or whatever. Okay? You want that thing. Well, I don't know that I want it today. Well, then whatever. Okay? But doing what needs to be done even when you don't want to show up for you. Okay? How do you bullshit yourself? Well, never mind. I'm not even going to ask that question. I know I've already asked it. I apologize. I put it out in the world, right? But we do it all the time. I just kind of accepted that this is enough for me. Great. As long as that's true, I don't have a problem with that. But I better never hear any lamentation or pissing and moaning or whatever, because I can't do anything beyond my means. My job's holding me back, my life's holding me back, my whatever. Then obviously you don't accept that position, because if you did, your dreams wouldn't exceed it. It's not the way it works. Did we accept it because this is good enough and I am happy and content? Or I've accepted this because doing anything more is too much work for me. It's too fucking hard. I'm not doing that. It puts the knot in my gut, the lump in my throat, the weird feeling. Okay? I know I know. It's not my listeners, because you guys are all like enlightened, right? You're on top of this stuff. Okay. For those who aren't, okay, you need a plan. But let's work on one battle at a time. Because otherwise it gets to be overwhelming. Okay. One way to shut down an army, the tactic, the strategy is called divide and conquer. You get them to split their forces in too many directions to where they can't apply enough directed force, focused fire, whatever, on taking one given target. It's too easy to take them out. We're no different. If your energy is directed in too many directions, it's really easy to shut you down. And even if you can manage what you're doing on a daily basis, right? I got this. As long as nothing else happens. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about with plans. So, James, questions, comments? I mean, it's another reason for having an instructor, right? And having a dojo and a curriculum and stuff like that, right? You don't have to think about any of this stuff, right? The goal then is to work the plan, because they've given you here's the requirements for the next belt. Learn these. Well, I didn't learn that one yet. Well, you either need to ask the teacher or ask them when it comes up on the lesson plan. Well, my teacher tends to wing it. Well, good luck. Or say, hey, you're winging this stuff, then it shouldn't be a problem for you to teach this one tonight because I need it. How about winging it in that direction? That'd be disrespectful to the teacher. I think a teacher that doesn't have their stuff planned out and they're not teaching based on what the student needs, right? They're doing mental masturbation to prove to themselves that they're the teacher. I think they're disrespectful because they're confusing teaching time with training time, like their own training time. We talked about that in the past, right? So James teaches every once in a while. I've got other guys that are new to teaching, other guys that have been doing it for a long time. When we're teaching, when you're on the floor teaching, if you're a teacher or a group leader, you should be past to present focused. I am teaching in this moment to these people that which I have learned. When I'm in student mode, solo training or in Japan or whatever, I am present to future focused because I have a certain skill set, understanding and all that now, but I am focused on learning and engaging to move myself forward. So you're not going to see me teaching other people or, hey, you're making a mistake with this or whatever. One of the first things my students hear when we hit the dojo for the first class is, if I don't say something to you, don't ask me a damn question, because I'm trying to figure this out for myself. Okay? We're all students here. Okay? That doesn't mean we don't talk about it later or whatever, but yeah, no. And I made this mistake as well way back in the day because I was a group leader, but I was also at a certain level of training and that kind of stuff. And I would teach what I was working on or what I needed, right? And my students progressed so slowly. And it wasn't until I split time out and, got certain people to a certain level of ability and said, hey, you got an extra hour in your week or whatever that we could get together. I really need a training partner to work on this stuff that I'm working on. So I stopped doing it in class. Right. But anyway, and of course, as always, my show, my take on things, right? Anybody else is free to tell me I'm full of it or they're going to do it I don't give a shit. I'm not responsible for their actions or their students. I'm responsible for mine and mine. So there we go. All right, James, back to the original question. Questions, comments?
The only thing that's come in is Dave said whenever the glitch happened there was damn Koga ninjas.
Yeah, we used to say that all the time whenever a glitch popped up in the world. Right? It's kind of like my Christian friends who tend to not blame other people or whatever, or they're not they're being non-specific about a general problem, and they would go, those damn Hittites. Now they used to exist, but they've long since, they're not around anymore. But they would borrow a name of somebody to blame that was really fictional. It was just a name to put on things, and everybody would chuckle and go, "Yeah, isn't that the truth?" Right? It was like identifying secondary or indirect karma that all kind of comes together, right? It's a coincidence. It's luck. Yeah. See, we don't like using those words because it disempowers people, right? So, as warriors, we can make it the Koga Ninja. We can make it the Tokugawas. We can make it the whatever. So, cool. Those damn Koga Ninja. There was a movie where something like that was in. Those damn. Oh, it was in the original remake of Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise. It was the very first one, and like, I didn't like that one as much because my hero growing up. Sorry, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Graduated in 1981. Mr. Phelps was a hero. Well, they turned him into a villain in that movie. But the way that what's his name, Tom Cruise's character first started to piece things together was this Gideon Bible that he had brought back from a place that he wasn't supposed to be in. He was supposed to be somewhere else. And Mr. Phelps's Jim Phelps's statement was those damn Gideons. So those damn Koga Ninja. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Seriously?
Yes, sir.
I either cracked skulls, or I made ears smoke, or I put people to sleep, or they long since jumped off because we're past their bedtime. Which is quite possible because I've got friends in the UK and all kinds of stuff that it's pretty late. All right. Speaking of which, those of you in the UK, I will be there in August. Yeah, but I'm on a cruise and I'll only be at certain ports for. So let's see, where am I? England, Ireland. I think we have a stop in Wales. I'll have to double check, and one in Scotland. So we're just going around the British Isles. That'll be fun. Something my wife's always wanted to do. It'll be nice to see how things have changed in some of those places since I've been there. But either way. All right. Is that it? Questions, comments? We're good? Okay. So a couple of last minute admin announcements. Again, if you're listening to this way after these dates, you can send a message and say, when is it, like, is there another one coming up this year? So our annual spring Ninjutsu training camp, April 26th, 27th, and 28th. Okay, there's only a couple of weeks. So let's go. Get signed up. Okay, don't tell me how much you want to train and then avoid all the training opportunities. Let's see. Thursday, April 4th is the 3 Mysteries / Earth Power Ring initiation that we're doing Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For those interested in Mikyo and actually getting a real world initiatory practice, that the reason why I'm doing it is because, one, it kind of puts everything together, but this is one of those things where in real time whether it's working for you. Okay, it's not mystical woo-woo, right? It's all based on science. And then what was the other one? Mod 3. Somebody had, several people are chomping at the bit for Mod 3 to start, and somebody just asked again about when Mod 3 would start. So not next week, but the information about signing up for it, if you're not one of my Platinum Inner Circle or local, like, Shinobi Kai students or whatever, I need time to get the page finished and information, registration, all that kind of stuff, and then we'll start getting the opportunity to enroll out. So actual training beginning probably in about 2 weeks. Okay. So, and in all honesty, James and I needed a little bit of a break because of all the stuff that we're working on and the sheer amount of lessons that we put into each of those modules. There ends up being 150, 160 some lessons in each
Right.
of those modules between personal development, skills and drills, and techniques. Yeah, there's a butt ton. It's a technical term, right? A butt ton. All right. So I think that's it for now. We'll get more information out to everybody. The plan with the Thursday class is, I'm being completely transparent. At the end of that, I will be opening up registration for anybody that wants to go through a multi-week course on a psychological self-defense framework within Mikyo called the Goshinbo. So this one is kind of an introductory thing. I decided not to do a free one this time around because one, it's another way to vet people. I want to deter the tire kickers, the idly curious, those who aren't going to practice anyway, and it actually lives to part of that training, which I'll be explaining on Thursday. But people need to have skin in the game. Okay, it's called sacrifice. Okay, if Nijitsu is the same, but if folks want to be doing Mikyo from the drive up window mentality and perspective, don't, because this is not something to peck at. Okay, I'll tell you right now. Okay, you're messing around with your own sanity. So, because this is not a take your time in learning it. Mikyo is taking something that could take decades to master on the exoteric side and just compresses it, not just in energy and stuff like that, but also time-wise. This is it's a roller coaster ride. Okay, all right, but it's cool. Look at all the symbols. Yeah. Well, just go online or whatever and buy the symbols and put them around your room and stuff like that. And there you go. See how easy that was? Check. Sensei's a dick. Yeah, well, I've owned that as well. All right. Anything else? Any last minute questions, comments?
Trinity just said that she's still here, putting my goals into practice and doing research.
Yes, she is. I'm very proud of my daughter. All right. And not just because she's on. I didn't say that just because she's on. She worked really, really hard. So anyway, that's it. I will talk to everybody again next time on, where are we? KUDEN.
Get more of KUDEN Radio, subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.